We will be doing our presentation on Palos Verdes Golf Club restaurant. Palos Verdes Golf Club is an illustrious semi-private club opened in 1924. While the club has multiple divisions, we decided to focus our research on the restaurant. Not only is this because it lags behind the other divisions in terms of performance, but also because our team member Edwin is a waiter there. We were therefore afforded unprecedented access to management, low-level employees, and confidential performance data. While we certainly will be looking more at this in our analysis section, we discovered three main problems with the business: a lack of intrinsic motivation, inadequate communication, particularly with regards to feedback, and a lack of extrinsic motivation despite guaranteed well above average compensation. These three problems led us to our research question: how can we improve job performance and overall motivation from employees who have already been compensated highly? To answer this important question, we will start by looking at the management structure, then move into deeper analysis, ultimately finishing with our recommendations.
In terms of the management structure of the PV Golf Club, there are three total divisions: course maintenance, pro shop, and the restaurant. We analyze the restaurant as the main component since it has 1/4 of the total 80 employees that work at PV Golf Club. There are two managers who work in the restaurant: the operations manager and food and beverage manager. To understand management's perspective, we interviewed both managers with 8 pre-written interview questions that we came up with, conducting one-on-one interviews. For the rest of the staff, a survey was administered regarding each employee's experience of employment. When looking at the surveys, we found that employees found themselves to be highly valued and relatively satisfied with the role. In fact, the responses are mostly positive, aside from how management motivated employees. When employees and managers were allowed to create their own responses, as opposed to selecting from 5 or 10 options for multiple choice questions, they were far more forthcoming in the flaws of the restaurant. That way, we analyzed both the written responses and the multiple choice questions in order to see how management can better improve intrinsic and extrinsic motivation.
When we begun our case analysis of Palos Verdes Golf Course restaurant, extrinsic motivation was a very interesting aspect of the restaurant, as this restaurant compensates their employees significantly higher than their competitors. With a base maximum gratuity of 18%, as well as a $19 an hour wage, this was significantly higher than other high-end restaurants. Because of this high monetary compensation, management at the restaurant was unhappy with the performance of the employees. They believed that this high pay should have been enough to motivate them. But as we know from this class, that notion is not always true. Vroom's expectancy theory suggests that because servers have a guaranteed income no matter how hard they work, lazy employees will not be motivated to perform. Adam's equity theory suggests that because the variability of performance is not reflective of the variability of compensation, higher performing employees will not be motivated to work harder, as their pay will not be significantly different than lower performing employees. Furthermore, this unease in particular employees will lead to a hostile individualistic culture rather than the preferred clan culture.
Now, building off the framework that Elsa set for the extrinsic motivation in Palos Verdes' food and beverage division, we'd like to discuss the intrinsic motivation that they like to instill upon the employees. One thing that we saw was there are essentially no artifacts, no slogans, and very little company culture and pride at working at Palos Verdes Golf Course. When we look at the motive morale rating, the most common morale rating given by the employees is about a 3 out of 5, and the mean of motivation rating given by employees is a 3.67 out of 5. What this indicates is that serious issues are not present. However, over time, this may slip, and we'd like to improve this as we want to have as high morale and motivation as possible to see decreased turnover and increased job satisfaction, ending with increased productivity that both managers that we're about to discuss very much want. Contradictory management styles are very common among the individual leaders within Palos Verdes Golf Course. Initially, we look at Nicholas Spurgeon. He's the director of food and beverage, and he has a more laissez-faire style. He's very hands-off, does not like to supervise a lot of people when he's on the job, will simply just make comments if somebody's doing something very incorrect. However, he thinks that they know their responsibilities and their job and that the employees are going to do it to the best of their ability. Omar Gutierrez, however, has a more authoritative style in which he supervises nearly as much as possible. Whenever he sees somebody doing something wrong, he's quick to point it out And as he said in his interview with Edwin, when he's on the floor, he points out everything. He wants to make sure that the job goes as best as possible. And this may pose an issue, as some employees have indicated that they have been receiving a little too high supervision than they would deem as ideal. While none of the major negative leadership traits, such as Machiavellianism or narcissism, are present within the company, one thing that we see is a lack of communication between management and employees. 4 to 6 employees through the Google Forms indicated insufficient communication being practiced within the company. Unclear expectations of employees by management are clearly evident, as Gutierrez, in his interview with Edwin, stated that he wishes that employees would take more initiative and fulfill some roles outside of the job description to help the betterment of the company. Now, with insufficient communication and chain link failure, we see that this inhibits development of intrinsic motivation and will have major negative impacts moving forward. And so I'm going to bring it over to Reese to discuss how we're going to solve these in the short term.
Thank you, Jared. Our recommendations will be focused around streamlining communication while incorporating methods to increase intrinsic and extrinsic motivation among staff. We strongly considered esteem needs within Maslow's hierarchy of needs when we dealt with extrinsic motivation. Half of the employees we surveyed indicated that they wanted more public recognition for their accomplishments, and managers even expressed a sincere desire to help employees out with their esteem needs. Considering all this, here are some of our short-term recommendations. We suggest to introduce an Employee of the Month program, which will also consist of a plaque in the employee recreation room and a $100 gift card bonus to a restaurant or business popular amongst employees. The recognition and the monetary reward are both designed to increase extrinsic motivation. The next recommendation we would have would be to schedule a management meeting for all directors within the golf club. They would discuss how crucial daily and spontaneous recognition of employee efforts are to their ultimate motivation. The goal here would be to raise morale and increase intrinsic motivation. Lastly, we recommend to immediately implement mid-shift manager employee feedback forms. This would not only encourage one-on-one meetings if there is further confusion related to individual motivational factors, but will also streamline communication amongst coworkers. I will now pass it on to Edwin, who will talk about our long-term recommendations.
Thank you, Reese. Now for long-term recommendations, we again want to implement goals that are going to achieve and maintain a high level of performance and motivation in the servers, as well as increase the effectiveness of managers. We would begin by implementing a monthly server that employees could take in order to make them feel heard, happy, and keep them committed to the restaurant. Next, we would recommend that management add a whiteboard to the server's workstation. This would include details of that day, such as plate counts, VIP members coming in, and a list of side work needed to be completed by the end of shift. This helps reduce that communication deficit, a problem highly mentioned by the employees. Lastly, we would advise the director of food and beverage to hire a hostess. This allows the manager to be more present in dining room operations and reduces server distractions, leaving them more time to tend to tables, which can lead to more satisfied servers, managers, and most importantly, guests. With these 3 recommendations, we are confident that Palos Verdes Golf Club will see an increase in quality of service. Now, here's Grant with a summary of the report.
Thank you, Edwin. As a group, we were surprised to find such an upscale, well-compensated business have such problems. Palos Verdes Golf Club restaurant absolutely has to address motivational factors and communication deficiencies within their establishment. If they are able to do so successfully by implementing our recommendations, we believe they will be well positioned for post-pandemic sustainable growth. Please let us know if you have any questions.